Is technology adoption creating a farming chasm between the adopters and the non-adopters? Are you a fast adopter, early adopter, late adopter, non-adopter? We're talking about technology adoption on the farm and the problem that creates if you don't adopt technology soon enough in this episode of The Granary.
You ready for a conversation with some real farmers about real issues? And the best part, you're invited. So pour yourself a drink, grab a snack, most importantly, pull up a chair. Welcome to The Granary. Hey guys.
All right, guys, you heard the topic. We've got a pretty big technological advance going on. Everybody said that for a long, long time, but truly things have happened faster. You are using drones on your farm. You're using drones to plant. You're using drones to do all kinds of stuff. There's people that are younger and they obviously understand this. There's people that are still in this game. They're 70, 75 years old that probably, they might still be using their flip phone. Is it creating a farming chasm? That's the question we're going to have here in this episode of The Granary. By the way, we're joined by our friend Chase Garner. Chase is with SprayTec, sponsor of this episode and a business partner of XtremeAg. We love the people of SprayTec. Thank you for being here, Mr. Garner, all the way up from Arkansas.
Yep.
All right. You're the young guy. I want to give the young guy approach to when you go to the field and you're like, oh man, this person's way behind. But before I do that, is farming now the adopters of technology and the non-adopters of technology, or maybe has it always been?
I think it's always been that way to a certain extent. And, you got to look in the last 20 years, what all we've done in 20 years. We've got auto steers. We didn't have that 2003, 2004 is about when that was coming out. Variable rate technology on fertility. That's about when all that kicked off. Planters started variable rate and seed. Technology's been constantly evolving. Now everybody's doing variable rate fertilize,
right,
and all this type thing. And now we're starting to see more AI stuff. You got your drones, you got more things on your planters, and it's just probably unlimited what we're going to see in the next few years.
You've always had this thing. I mean, you're now old enough to look back and say, I remember when we thought this was a big innovation. I remember we thought this was a big innovation. And the point is, when we say, oh, well, it's changing fast, I'm not sure it's changing any faster than it was 30 years ago.
No, I agree. And we sit here, you talk about the topic. I've been thinking about that this morning. The technological changes have always happened. Now they're becoming more web-based, more cloud-based, more electrical, things like that. So it is ramping up a little bit away from a mechanical innovation, but mechanical innovations are still technological innovations.
Right.
And so this has always been going on, but the technology that's coming now is, it doesn't require a wrench. It requires a computer to fix it. And I think that's what the difference is that everybody looks at. But as long as technology provides an ROI, I want to embrace all of it.
Right. By the way, the curve, they taught me this in a sales class when I was in Ag Sales 431 in 1991 about the early adopter, the experimental and all that. And then there's the people that, obviously are Amish. They're still, no offense, but they're not watching the show anyhow. That was funny, wasn't it? Anyway, where are you? Are you one of the early adopters? Are you the middle guy? Or are you the never adopter? Where are you?
Yeah, so
everybody thinks because you're young, you're supposed to be, yeah, man, I'm using the latest technology. You got the thing on your watch, but are you really at the cutting edge of technology adoption?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is we have to be efficient now. That's the biggest thing. We have to have an ROI at the end of the year. We have to be very efficient in what we're doing. With technology, we can have the best technology in the world. We have to be able to read the data that comes with it. Mm-hmm. And I think, with that, when we're using this technology, the companies that are providing the technology that we're using, we have to look at the big picture of, what data are we getting with them? How is this helping the farm?
What about the biggest thing, Johnny, that you are like, hey, the one thing that the innovation in the last 10, 20 years, whatever, this is the one that I think I couldn't farm without?
Whew, that's a tough one. I would say a lot of the technology investments in the planters that we have, the high-speed planters, how accurate they are, how they can change on the go, so many different variables on the planter from 2x2, in-furrow changing, hydraulic down pressure. We couldn't do that without the technology that we have and access to. And I would say, to tie all that in together, the technology we have at our fingertips and our cell phone, That's the big thing. The data that we can have instantly anywhere we are and see any tractor was running, any soil sample, any sap sample, tissue sample, instant data coming back. That allows us to make decisions on the go. And we did
on your employees. John, Matt does that.
Yeah.
Spies on his employees on his phone.
Yeah, but you got to think, 20 years ago, we didn't have that.
Right.
10 years ago, we really didn't have a lot of this, but now we do. And a lot of it's just going to evolve that much faster. And that's what's going to allow, I think, technology to advance in the speed it's going to in the next few years.
Is it too much?
No.
Is it too much for Gene?
It used to be. My dad resisted a lot of that. He's an old-fashioned conservative guy. That's not a criticism, just an observation. And I remember when people started to have the header height control on the corn heads. Yeah. Of course, we've always had it on the bean head. Well, not always, but my life we have. And when I first started farming, we didn't have header height control on the corn head. And then when we went from 38-inch rows to 30-inch rows, it just automatically came on the head we bought. Mm. And he started using it, and he thought, this is pretty okay. And I still remember the day that he got out of the combine because the header height control broke on the corn head. And he said, a few years ago, I couldn't imagine that we needed this. And now this is a shutdown breakdown because we're not mowing anymore. This is fixed.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, holy cow, you want to talk about a technological leap forward? Yeah, right. That was a transition point in my life right there.
And I think
life easier.
Made his life easier.
Yeah. And I think that's a good point. Once they see it, no matter the generation or the age, they realize how important it is. My granddad, when he was in his 70s, in 2001, we started variable rate and fertilize. He always spread the fertilizer on the farm. And I told him we're going to start variable rating, so we got to make 2 passes because we had a single bin truck. I thought he would let me drive the truck. He made me sit in the passenger seat with my laptop and controllers. I ran all the prescriptions and everything in the background, the controllers. Yep. He still drove the truck up and down through the field because he wanted to still do his job. And he was eat up with how we were variable rating and saving money by doing that. At first, he was like, this is going to cost us money because we're not putting out the fertility like we used to. Mm-hmm. Then he realized we're putting it where it needs to be. Mm-hmm. But I'm just saying, you got people that you got to have an open mind, I guess is where I was going, because Kelly's dad saying that just reminded me of what my granddad told me then, because he was eat up with it and he wanted to do it every day. And of course, we went to a 2-bin truck, and now you got,
we said that we opened is the creating a chasm. When you go to farms from Texas, North Carolina, is your SprayTec territory. I don't know that the chasm is that great, because it kind of is, if you don't adopt at some point, like you said, variable rate, if your margins are $8 an acre at this point, or break even, if you're not doing that, the chasm only lasts for a year or two, and then you're not visible.
Yeah. Well, when I started on the farm, when I was younger, we had the brown box specialist GPS. Yeah. Y'all remember that?
Yeah.
Now we can punch it right there on the screen. Mm. That's how far we've come, and I was out of ag for, 6 years. Right. And just in 6 years, how far we've came, it's amazing. They're talking yield maps. When yield maps first come out, I was talking to Matt about the yield maps, and he said when they first come out, a combine had issues with the yield maps. Well, he just told them to keep cutting. Well, at the end of the year, him and Lane are sitting down talking about their yield. Yeah. Well, they're looking at their yield maps, and Lane's like, well, we just kept cutting. It wasn't working. Mm. We just kept cutting. Now, the yield map, if the combine's having problems with the yield map, they're going to stop their operation. Right. Yeah. They're going to fix it.
Because they use that data. It's not just because you can say, oh, well, if it's just about the yield, measure how many truckloads come off that field. They look at it and say, we make so many decisions based on that piece of technology in the cab. Now we're hamstrung for decision making.
We build our variable rate prescriptions for seeding and nitrogen off of that yield map.
Yep.
It's important. Yeah. It's important data. It has to be right.
Are there non-adopters that are still in business? Yes.
Yes.
Will they be here 10 years from now?
Well, we had the previous episode with Jason Mock. He said that he doesn't maybe need all that technology to do things. He needs to find efficiency in other areas. So there's no absolutes. Some of them will be here, but the people that are embracing the technology, becoming more efficient and creating an ROI, if you're creating a bigger ROI, you're going to be the one that's still here. Yeah. So if you're behind the times and that ROI isn't there, you could get swept up.
But you can do so much now with the technology. You can do work orders through John Deere Ops. It can tell you exactly how many ounces of every chemical you're fixing to spray for the week. It sends the work orders to the sprayers. The guys know where to go. They know what wreck's going where. But at the end of the day, it tells the farm owner, the operator there, how much to order. And you're not buying any extra. You know exactly what it is. And you can track that. It helps you track your expenses. And, you just play into all that. And technology is just not changing on the equipment side. It's changing on the adjuvant side and everything else. They've got an adjuvant that we use this year on our farm that has, I know 3 main things that we're looking for all in one. Used to, we'd have to put 3 different products. And, now how many's in the adjuvant, the full tech adjuvant?
Oh, there's several components.
Yeah, 7, 8 different things. Yeah. But I'm just talking about, you think of how that's changing, and, you take seed technologies changing. Without whether it's in the equipment side or whatever, it's an evolution that we need to keep happening.
Well, I asked a question about the chasm. The truth is, it's hard to it'd be hard to get left behind, because some of the stuff, it just is there. Your products, I can't. If I use your products, they're already there. It's not like there's the version of it like, here's the stuff that sucks from 1980 and here's the stuff that's modern. Which one do you want? It doesn't matter. There's no 1980 version anymore.
Yeah, but I don't think Kelly would ever go back without auto steer, right? But when we first got auto steer, we had some hiccups.
When we first got it.
Last year we had a couple of days where it was almost like a blackout where auto steer wasn't working. We couldn't figure out how to plant or spray. It shuts down the operation almost because we're so dependent on it, but we're so efficient is the reason we want it.
But if the marker broke on the planter 6 years ago, 8 years ago, we'd have to stop planting too. You know what I mean? And that just happens. I can't imagine now we have planters without markers.
Yeah.
And the John Deere anhydrous bars we have to use the auto steer because you can't see where you've been because of the no-till. The technology is great.
Chase, just yesterday we were doing a recording, and I made the point after the camera shut off to Johnny that he really only works about 6 weeks a year, and even that's not really work. They just sit in a piece of equipment that steers itself. This has nothing to do with our topic. I just wanted to bring up one more time how I did that. And you liked it.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious. Yeah.
Anyway, on the chasm, do you wonder if you're aging out? Because my phone did an update last week, and I was pissed off for a day because I couldn't figure something out. Do you wonder sometimes am I starting to be that old man that's like screaming at the clouds or something?
Yeah, updates on equipment is always usually a big hiccup in the operation. We'll show up in the mornings and somebody go out there and update something, and just like you said, they can't figure out how to work the machine again for a day or two. But if you don't have that, if you don't constantly have the next thing coming, you really don't realize what's out there for you to use, because the technology that's here today is going to change so much in the next 2 or 3 years. It's going to be unreal. Autonomous tractors and all that stuff is here.
Yeah.
It's just not being implemented on our farms yet, and it's coming. And it might not work as well where we are in West Tennessee, but we're different places like where Kelly and different parts of Iowa where it's flat, which Kelly's not flat for sure, but that could be interesting in itself. It's supposed to stop at obstacles where it's going to drive up to the whole field. That's a hill and stop. Right. So it's going to be interesting.
But where he farms, I point this out all the time, Chase. If we had the kind of hills, we wouldn't be farming. They'd put a chairlift on it if it was in Indiana. We don't have this. I was on the phone before I ever went to his farm, and I was looking at the map, and I said, hey, I'm leaving Des Moines. I was here for business. I said, is there some really hilly fields like right behind your farms? He says, oh, not just there. They're everywhere. That's all we farm. And so it's really different.
Yeah, I get really nervous watching some of his videos with his combines.
Yeah. Well, just think about the Hilco kits, how that could be.
There's technology right there.
Yeah. It's every part of our operations technology now.
Yeah, side hill, so the machine isn't tipping over and falling down the hill.
Right. The machine tips over 18 degrees.
What does it tip over? The axle.
It tips 18 degrees to lean into the hill, so you have a level threshing surface.
Right. 18 degrees is about half as much as it needs to be on most of his fields. Yeah. It needs to be about 40. Yeah. So anyway, you worry about getting left behind? I do.
I was thinking about that when you said it. It made me laugh. I remember when I was young and we had the VCR, and my mom and dad couldn't set the VCR, so I had to do it. And I'm like, I'll never be like that. I will know how to do this stuff. And that's the technology. I think I'm definitely left behind because I'm constantly asking Vern, constantly asking Cheese, asking Caitlin, asking Evans. Yeah. I can't do anything.
No.
We were Commodity Classic. I handed my cell phone to Lane Miles, and I said, you know how last year at Commodity Classic you had to fix some stuff? You got to fix some more stuff for me.
Yes.
He says, you'd almost start charging you. I said, you could.
No.
It amazes me what the younger generation knows how to do because I can't figure it out.
Yeah, well, obviously that's the tough part is that you think you're keeping up, and then it dawns on you that I couldn't figure out how to access my email, so I handed my phone to somebody else and said, figure this out.
I think cameras in ag are so important right now. Cameras on, combines, drones, sprayers, all of those things, being able to put a drone in the air and do your stand counts now.
That's huge.
That's huge. You don't have to go out in the field. I can remember when I used to do stand counts, we'd take a side by side, run down the road, stop in the field, and do our rope and get our stand count that way. Now you can throw a drone in the air and it runs itself. All you have to do is control it there and back, and it gets your stand counts, and it's efficient. You can do heat units in your field. They're projecting yield with those drones now. I mean, that's important there. And then talking the combine and sprayer side, I feel like they're, with nowadays with hired helps, they may not have as much experience in ag as they need to have when you hire them. But with those cameras, it's real time data right there at your fingertips, and they could see what's going on in that whole machine while they're running it. So, and I feel like they'll learn a little bit faster,
Yeah.
Whereas when I was a kid, it was get on there and go. It wasn't a camera sitting there or any of that. It was just get and go.
Figure it out.
Yeah.
We shot a video in June at your place with Windgrove doing drones, and then it was a year before that at your place. It's getting to where now I don't know that we need to be. I'm not sure that a year from now it's going to be some new news that we cover what drones are doing in ag. I mean, I've been to start harvesting. Because it was neat that we talked about they're doing recon, scan counts, checking for problems. Then it was neat that you're putting a product in there, seed or fertility or insecticide or fungicide.
I shouldn't say this because but I don't know what else they could do. Other than, like you say, harvest, but I didn't know what else they could do with tractors, and I didn't know. I mean, it never ceases to amaze me, the advances.
You wonder about the payback, because to be honest, and I'm not like the closed-minded. We've talked about this. We just were at Commodity Classic. You go out by any of the equipment companies, they're all there, and they have multiples of millions of dollars of stuff sitting there. And at some point, you're like, yeah, this does everything. It's amazing, and the technology in this thing, and the horsepower, and all that. But the payback, I mean, did the John Deere 4020 have a bigger payback per dollar invested in it than this new $1 million piece of equipment? I almost think that it did. That's where I'm starting to wonder about in other words, innovation has a bigger payback. The wheel was a bigger new deal than the thing that we just invented, right? Because the first big innovation is like, holy crap, we went from horses to a tractor. Now going
to the leap forward.
Yeah. Now going to the modern tractor that's $1 million and it has everything in it. You're like, man, that's gradations of innovation, but is the payback there?
I would think it is in the efficiency. That's one of the big things I can see, because you go back to tillage, there's not a lot of tillage where we live now, but I know where Matt and them are and where Chase lives, they till everything. If you didn't have GPS, how much overlap would you have all day long? 2-3 foot every pass? You're talking thousands of passes, and Matt's running a dozen tractors doing tillage. You could probably eliminate 1 or 2 tractors, just amount of overlap in a day. Yeah. And he's not going to do that. He's got to be able to work more ground, so he's got to have that. But I think the efficiency piece, and then knowing what might have happened in a growing season, be able to go back and look at data from the planters or from the combines and overlap with maybe spray data to figure out what might have happened, what went wrong, if anything. The data is what's going to be the future of making decisions, though. And so I think the efficiency piece is where it's at, though. You could take a 300 horse tractor 30 years ago and a 300 horse tractor today, and you're going to get a lot more out of the tractor today, just because of mainly the GPS side of it is one of the big reasons.
Yeah. I mean, I make the point all the time. I don't run equipment like you guys, but my little utility tractor is easily double the capability of a tractor I grew up operating. Yeah, just the what it can do per horsepower, just the ease of
the hydraulic capability.
The hydraulic capability.
Yeah, but you took a punch at me earlier. I don't think I would trust you in one of my combines unless we had the technology we have on it today.
Oh, but you wouldn't with the technology you have, right?
I could always shut the combine off.
Well, and what really you got to admit, is you could put a monkey in there because the thing steers itself.
That's why I chose you.
Right. I appreciate that. Don't you laugh at that.
Get it, Chase.
Chase, you go and see these farms. What strikes you? You're a younger guy. You're supposed to be more adept at technology. You probably are, just because, you grew up with a thing in your hands that is new to us. Whatever. You go on somebody's farm from your territory in Texas to North Carolina. What strikes you?
I would say the different ways that the guys are farming from even in Arkansas. I do the whole state of Arkansas, and just from Matt's operation to the top of the state, from tip to tip, there is different. In my area, you don't see many DB planters, any pull type planters. You go to North Arkansas, and you'll see some pull type planters there.
I had never seen a planter that hooked onto the 3-point hitch until I came to Matt Miles Farm. I didn't know that there was a planter that, unless it was like a little 4-row that you're putting in a food plot for deer hunting, I didn't know that there was actual scale-sized large planters that just hooked up to the back of the tractor as a 3.
And then the way they fold, the way they stack up and stuff, you don't see that.
But weight is Matt's enemy. He wants something light that can pick up on the end, turn, and go right back down.
Because of the irrigation.
He's not no-tilling. Yeah.
And our for irrigation, we can't plant our ends.
Right.
So,
we did a video at Kelly's last summer where Kelly and I spent $5 to $7 million putting all the subsurface drip irrigation in for Matt, and we thought it was a great idea. We liked spending Matt's money. You? Do you like telling him things he should do with his money?
Yeah, but I want him to have an ROI at the end of the year.
See, we don't care about that so much. We just really enjoy it.
Well, I won't have a job.
So technology, planter type technology, what strikes you? So that's talk about technology. I never knew that planter. Other things I see when you go to your farms. We did a thing, a field day, where a bunch of non-ag people came to Kelly's. And just for fun, the fashion designers from Seattle were there, and they were very open-minded. They loved what they were learning and all that. And I said, okay, now they're getting ready to show you all the technology. And you've just done it. And I said, yeah. And I said, I like to do a fun thing with people from the suburbs. I said, how much you think this unit costs? I said, the planter and that tractor. And they said, oh, we were just talking about that. And he said, my buddy and I, we were thinking probably $250,000 or $300,000. And I said, yeah, you're a quarter of the way there. And they said, what? That's about a $1 to $1.1 million system right there.
Tractor and implement.
And all the tech and all that. It usually strikes people.
Yeah.
I wonder sometimes if I'm going to be the one left out. I'd say the other one that when I think of it, Johnny keeps going to efficiency. The problem, at some point, efficiency gains don't make you as much money. I mean, again, the wheel was a great big innovation. This next thing, I don't know that creating one more little % of efficiency, if that's where we are, the payback gets lesser and lesser.
Well, in mine and Johnny's area, look at cotton technology. Look how efficient we are now with cotton.
Talking about the baler picker.
The baler picker now, compared to having a module builder and bowl buggies and a basket picker.
We don't know what it is.
Well,
buggy?
A module builder.
Used to make the big square bales at the end of the field.
Yeah.
So you had 1 or 2 guys on it. You had a bowl buggy that the picker would dump in. It would take it and dump it in the module builder. You had probably 4 or 5 guys. Now one guy can do the same.
Now
one guy can do it now.
That's the wheel right there.
Yeah, that is. Yeah. How long has it taken for that? 20 years?
2010, I think is kind of when that came out. So 15 years. But before that, we had trailers that held 7 to 10 bales of cotton. So it's really changed.
The first cotton picker was on a tractor.
Yeah. So the technology's changed. I'm like y'all, I don't know where it's going to stop on the evolution of the harvest equipment, but we saw some really neat things at Commodity Classic this year on where they're going to really make things more efficient with the combine talking to the grain cart and stuff like that. And then, the efficiency piece is probably going to plateau out at some point, but then you got the autonomous piece coming too. So
one thing I would say is, don't say they can't make it any better.
Right.
Because they continue to. The greatest piece of technology we have on the farm is the cell phone. To me, the second greatest piece are the row shutoffs, the down force, and then the variable rate. Yeah, well, those things are the greatest ROIs that we have.
But you got one piece of equipment doing all of them. That's what's crazy. Yeah. You got a planter that's able to do every one of those.
We just illustrated this in February when your friend Matt was here. We took a ride in my wife's 71 Chevy Cheyenne. And it's a cool truck. And by God, everybody turns their head and says, oh, it's just a cool truck. But when they screw up, they say things like, they don't make them like they used to. I'm like, no, they make them a lot better. Matt and I got stuck in an inch of mud with that truck. My modern 2023 F-150, it wouldn't even be a concern. I push one little button and I can go through whatever.
It's a cool old truck, but Johnny doesn't want to drive that back to Jackson. He'd just as soon get in that 3/4 to now.
Every time.
Heated seats and more room. And yes.
I love my 06 monster truck, but I drove the F-250 here. We didn't drive the monster truck here.
Exactly.
The technology's nice.
Yeah, absolutely it is. And I mean, it's that way everything. Again, I'm going to go back to the efficiency gains. That's cool, but when is that not enough to justify the expense of new technology? You're gaining. You're not going from horse to 40/20. You're going from this gradation to this gradation. I don't know.
I don't know that I necessarily agree. I thought that auto steer was a luxury when it came out.
Yeah.
Well, now when we don't have the markers on the planters and we do things like that, there's a definite payback there. And I'll tell you, at the end of the day, you're not as fatigued when you can hit the button. And then you can also turn around, look at the planter.
Yeah.
You can look at things. You're more aware of things that are going on because you're not having. That's one less thing you have to pay attention to.
Understood.
And then like the row shutoffs for us, we save 10% of the seed.
Yeah.
You know, in my hills with all the crooked corners and the contours, things like that. Plus the double planted corn yields half at best. And so there's a real ROI there. You know, Evans's research is the hydraulic downforce is 9.5 bushel per, you know, and that just continues to pay every year. The variable rate, that continues to pay every year. So like the scales of efficiency that we're finding, and obviously we have all those things now, but it just continues to get better. And that's one of the people talked about, well, we're not making as much as we used to then and stuff, but all of these things allow us to cover more acres in a more efficient manner, which is the reason that we can still make a living today.
And while we're talking about planters, I don't think we could have the size planters we have today without technology. Because when I was a kid, we had an 8-row planter and it had 8 lights in the cab that would light up if one of them wasn't working right.
Yep.
Can you imagine a 120-foot planter without technology?
Yeah, because you're going to the lights.
Could you imagine a 60-foot marker
Right,
trying to keep it if you didn't have auto steer? It wouldn't work. You'd break it off every time you went across the field. But where I'm going with that is without that technology, you couldn't have the size equipment we have today, and we wouldn't be able to farm on the scale we are today.
Can you imagine in my fields, because I've done this, our 60-foot planters with the 30-foot marker hanging out there, it's rubbing in the dirt. That's what breaks it.
Yeah.
It catches when it goes down over the
Right.
Yeah.
Well, just think with sprayers, how much money you're saving there with chemical being efficient there.
Well, when part of the fume shuts off, because again, you're not overlapping and all that kind of thing.
Yeah.
It used to be, I was a big deal when the foam marker came out. Like, and now I know, because it used to be you just were counting rows or guessing.
Yeah.
Seriously. Mike Busick wearing his shirt today. My good friend has a chemical company.
I have a little bit of a problem with that, by the way. He's not paying to be here. Why are we wearing his shirt on camera?
I like the shirts.
I don't like him well enough to have his shirt here for free.
So Busick doesn't like the shutoffs on the sprayer because he sells less chemical.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. Right. If you're in the business of selling the inputs, you like to have as much of that stuff. We don't tell anybody our little secret here, do we, Chase? You really like when that SprayTec stuff just gets blown out every
Use all the full tech we can.
You know, I get a lot of kickback when I go to a farmer and I say, look, I know you're probably putting 2 or 3 jugs in the tank. Let's do 1. Let's be more efficient there. And then I tell him he can treat his nurse trailer. And then that takes a step out of the field.
Yep.
And we're being way more efficient in that aspect too. Yeah. So
that's what technology is all about.
But you're not going to make big bonuses if you're telling people to use less stuff. You need some more stuff.
Well, it all works out in the end. It all works out in the end.
We asked the question, is technology creating a farming chasm? And I think we can revisit this topic a lot because the technology continues to come from companies like SprayTec. Our friend Chase Garner, all joking aside, he doesn't want to oversell you stuff. He wants to sell you the right amount of stuff to make it work. So if they want to learn more about SprayTec, where do they go?
www.spraytec.com.
Got it. And by the way, the question that my friend Kelly said is, don't ever do the thing. This will never get any better.
Yeah.
There's an old famous footage. Parnelli Jones broke 150 miles per hour at the Ebbsmore Speedway, and they said they'll never go any faster than that. Now, 235 miles per hour. And they don't go faster than that, except for they put governors on us. They don't. Anyway, that's the question. We talked about technology and at the farm, creating the chasm. Are you adopting? Are you an early adopter? Are you a late adopter? The point is, it's easier for you to adopt now than ever. Look at what our friend Johnny said. It's so easy, even a monkey can sit in that combine, which is why he said he'd let me do it. Anyway, if you want to join these conversations, we always have a lot of fun. We keep things light because we want it to be enjoyable for you. Pull up a chair figuratively, and you're joining us here at the Granary. Plenty of episodes like this out there. Share them with somebody who'll enjoy it. Just like you. And also remember, go to our YouTube channel and hit subscribe. It didn't cost anything. Go on YouTube, type in XtremeAg. It's right there. All of our stuff is XtremeAg, Acres TV, and on YouTube. Till next time, cheers from the Granary. Yeah.